Hey friends, it's Patrick, host of the Urban Amish Show. It's episode 11, and I'm glad you joined us. Got a special treat for us here on this episode. I have my son as a guest, second son. You've heard a time or two from his big brother, Benjamin, who is away at school. He's at Vanderbilt University as a freshman. And William, glad you're here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's exciting. It's been a long time coming, so it's awesome to finally get the opportunity.
First time guest on the podcast.
First time ever on the Urban Amish Show.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. You know, why don't you just kick us off by telling us something about yourself that most people wouldn't know?
Oh boy. Okay. Just anything?
And yeah, something they might be surprised to learn.
Okay. Well, this is not new to everyone. People that are close to me will know this, but not too long ago, I'd say, I don't know, young teenage, it was from like, I don't know, probably 8 to 12. You can correct me if that's wrong, but I used to have a like deathly fear of tight spaces. I used to have really bad claustrophobia. Couldn't do elevators, couldn't do any confined spaces. Just I would flip a switch and just freak out.
That was part of your special experience of life at that time.
There was I have quite a bit of memories of you and me just having to figure it out. It's like don't go in 3 stories up the steps. Like, it's either we're not going to the hotel or you're going up the elevator. So
yeah. You know, looking back, I regret only that I wasn't more patient with you.
I mean, I'm sure it is difficult and I don't have any resentment. So, but yeah, I do. There was definitely a couple times where we kind of got into it a little bit.
Yeah. I thought that I was going to reason you out of an irrational fear, which that never really works.
Just came with time, I guess.
So you're good with elevators now?
I love elevators.
Really? You love them?
I mean,
no, but you're like, you don't feel any fear when you go up to an elevator.
Nothing, no. It might get a little stuffy, but
yeah.
Besides that, I'm good now, yeah.
What do you do if it feels stuffy?
Just breathe.
Keep breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In, ya, out, way.
Yahweh. Love it. Well, I think that's that kind of gets to the heart of who William is. He's had some challenges that he just described, the battle with claustrophobia, that probably have some scars from that, and we all have scars from things, and you've faced that fear head on.
Right.
It's one of the things we talk about here on the show. Catch us up a little bit on your bio, just on your life. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so as everyone watching knows, back in late June, we made the long move from Nashville, Tennessee to small Holmes County, Ohio. And that has definitely been an adjustment, but obviously everything happens for a reason, and that's kind of been something I've been trying to remember. But yeah, almost done with school now, which is weird to think about.
You're a junior.
Yeah, I'll be a senior in a couple months here. Football season went well. Yeah, so right now I'm just doing school and working out.
New job starting?
Yeah, I'm working at a pizza parlor, so that'll be a fun new experience. But yeah, just kind of living.
Good. So the move from Nashville or Franklin, Tennessee to Holmes County, you went through 2 big moves. First, when you were 10, you moved from Lancaster, Pennsylvania down to Franklin. And then when you were 17, you moved up here. Or it was actually not yet turned 17 when we moved, right?
It would have been, like just a month before.
Yeah. So you've experienced 2, state-to-state moves.
Right.
Or out-of-state moves before you're 20. How did that impact you? How has that shaped you?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I would definitely say that the first move from Pennsylvania to Tennessee was a lot more impactful on my character and who I am. With this more recent move, it was definitely difficult leaving the area and the people, but obviously I was a lot more mature and I'd lived a lot more life. And so I was able to work that out in my head a bit more and just kind of take it, face on and deal with that. But the move from Pennsylvania to Tennessee was kind of a different story. So yeah, like you said, I would have been 9, almost 10, because it would have been June of 2015 too. So
same time of year. Mm-hmm.
Would have been about a month before my 10th birthday that we moved to Tennessee. And I think that one of the reasons that it had such a big impact just on my life was I feel like when we lived in Lancaster, so obviously I was homeschooled for a bit. I did 1 year of private Christian schooling at Linville. And I was very sheltered, just always close to family, never really experienced outside of Lancaster much. So yeah, I'd never really had a, taste of the real world, if you will. And then I moved to Tennessee and was thrown into the public school system. And it was definitely a change. Yeah, like everything I thought I knew was just out the window. So that was like, oof, it was kind of an eye-opener. But, and that did create some dark times. Just, 10-year-old kid that all of a sudden has to start over. No friends, no family. I mean, obviously I had immediate family, but I used to be, a 5-minute drive away from my grandparents, not having that, and not being old enough to really be, spiritually aware, and not being able to lean on that as much. Just it shaped me. 4th and 5th grade, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th grade were definitely some growing times, and I learned a lot. And
looking back, does that kind of look like a dark season in your life?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Yeah, but I mean, obviously, I don't want to it's dark in the sense that I learned from it. It's not something that I want to grow up resenting and wishing I could do over.
You can see the beauty in it, but it was hard. Right,
it's hard to. There's definitely some decisions I made that are hard to swallow, the fact that I made those decisions, but then, I also know that I wouldn't be who and where I am now without those experiences. So
yeah, exactly. Well, that's pretty much true for all of us in our darker parts, our darker, more painful moments. It's very mature of you to notice that at 17. So good. I like that. What would your friends say if asked to describe your vibe?
I think you would get a couple answers across the board depending on who you ask. But I think for the most part, I would be described as upbeat, relatively outgoing, social, just overall pretty out there, I would say.
Funny?
Yeah, I'd have my moments.
You laugh. I mean, you laugh a lot with your friends. I
do. Maybe. Yeah, it's not always contributed from me, but I do enjoy a good laugh, and I like people that bring me joy, and I can do the same way. Yeah.
What kind of music are you enjoying right now?
It's kind of in a transition phase a little bit. I used to listen to a lot of hip hop and rap, which I still do. I listen to a lot of alternative R&B right now, Brent Faiyaz, Bryson Tiller, just kind of that hip hop, soulful, maybe not soul is the right word, but more mellow. But then soon after we moved, it's been a lot of Zach Bryan, Tyler Childers, Colter Wall, a bit more country and folksy. So that's been fun to experiment with a bit.
Yeah, I've seen you enjoy all that. And I like when you introduce me to music. I have, for those listening and watching, I have a built-in music recommendation service in my kids because they, as I'm taxiing them around, they make song suggestions, and I get exposed to new ranges of music that I might not have discovered otherwise.
Yep.
Anything else you're listening to? It doesn't have to be music.
I am not listening much to podcasts right now, which is ironic because I'm sitting on my first episode here, but Well, okay, one podcast that I have been enjoying every once in a while is New Heights, which is the Kelsey Brothers podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good laugh listening to those two and bicker back and forth. So I listen to that one occasionally on the road, like on the road trip to Tennessee recently. I listened to that a bit, and obviously on my feed, if I'm scrolling, I'll occasionally come across Dr. Peterson or Hormozy, is it?
Yeah, Alex Hormozy.
Yeah, he'll come up a lot too. So I'll tune into those when they come across my feed. But maybe it's still something I'm growing into, but I've not been a huge podcast listener.
Well, you're a big music fan too.
Yeah,
you love music.
Yeah,
you always have.
Definitely.
Describe a mentor you're impacted by right now.
Right now, I mean, obviously, still when I can contact him, Ben.
Your older brother.
Yeah, my older brother Ben, who y'all have seen on the podcast a couple times, but he's really busy right now doing his thing. And obviously like you mentioned in the beginning, we've had some good conversations out on the porch, and then so I recently kind of got to meet my youth leader a little bit more one-on-one. His name's Eric. He's a great guy, and I definitely see him becoming one of my bigger mentors, so it's been cool.
Very cool. What do you want to do more of in the next 90 days?
Create.
That came quick.
Yeah.
What do you want to, anything in particular you want to talk about? What's in your head?
Nothing in particularly, but I just want to go out and create, whether it's helping you do the, edit the podcast and get that up, or, work, I don't know, on an engine, or maybe not that far stretch, but, maybe go out and even if it's just a woodworking project, something simple,
Yeah. You do love to work with your hands and do stuff like that.
Yeah, and I've definitely been consuming more than I have been creating, so that's something I want to reverse, especially as I'm coming out of high school here.
Well, my next question was going to be, what do you want to do less of in the next 90 days?
Yeah, less consuming, just less being on my phone. That's always kind of something I've struggled with, is being on my phone a bit too much, so I want to be more present in the moment, which would require less screen time, and so I think that's a big one for me.
Mm-hmm. So when you say less consuming, are you talking about content online?
Yes.
Gotcha. Because you still consume a lot of food.
Okay. I do. Yeah, I consume a lot of food right now. But
what are your biggest priorities over the next 7 years?
Next 7 years, find what I am truly passionate about and what I love to do. And I know that won't come quick necessarily, but I definitely want to find something that I love to do. I would love to get married and start a family soon. Not soon, but definitely within the next 7 years here. Start a family, find stuff that I love to do, and travel and just learn and create, like I said.
Yeah. When you think about things that you're passionate about that you might want to pursue, is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this, and something that always comes up is, the automotive field, whether it's being a mechanic or, having a body shop where I do custom work. And that one's kind of tricky because it's something that I feel like I would like to do, but it's not something I have enough experience in yet to determine if it is something I want to do or not. So I'm definitely planning on kind of exploring that field a bit more this summer and see how that goes. But besides that,
you've always liked cars.
Yeah, as long as I can remember, whether it was those little battery powered 4-wheelers at the cabin, or getting my first dirt bike at 12.
Anything with wheels and a motor, you were
anything that goes fast. Yeah. Yeah.
So what was the first car that you kind of fell in love with that caught your attention?
So when I actually got into cars, because it's more recently that I've actually really started to tune into cars and engines and whatnot. And, obviously the Porsche 911 GT3 RS. I love your BMW. It's sitting right out there. It's looking pretty out there. But, yeah, the E30, I think more like German. I've always loved how Mercedes looks, Audis, BMW, and then obviously Italian cars, Porsches, Ferraris. So,
Yeah, it sounds like you've got taste like your dad.
Yeah, and now that it comes to me, I remember the very first car that I remember like this is a beautiful car is the Lamborghini Aventador.
No kidding.
I remember seeing that car and like I want a Lamborghini when I'm older. So
that's the Aventador is that the current model of like their supercar?
I think so. Yeah. Well, I know like the big one is the Aventador SVJ.
SVJ. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see they just came out with like a rally mode?
Lamborghini did.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. No.
I don't know if it's built. It's probably built on the Aventador platform,
Okay.
but it's did you see Porsche's 911 Dakar, the rally version?
Yep.
It's kind of like it's set up
Okay.
kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's
Looked
wild.
it up and stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely an answer to a question I didn't think anybody would be asking. But
Yeah.
the Porsche version of that looks pretty fun.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know exactly what I would do with that, but
Take it up to the field.
be about right for this rural, these off-road, the dirt roads and stuff.
Right.
Go bombing down the dirt roads in a Dakar.
You could push it in a Porsche.
Watch for the buggies coming.
No kidding. You go up a hill and might just be right there.
Yeah, you don't want to come around the blind corner too
Right.
fast.
Yeah.
Hang that thing out over a buggy. Have you? How's it been to learn to drive in this Amish community with all the bikes and walkers and buggies?
Yeah, it's something you have to learn. It's not drastically different, obviously, because it's still just, roads and whatnot. But Amish people, I don't want to say arrogant, because that might be a bit extreme, but they definitely own the road in their mind. Like, they do not, like, if you get caught behind them, like, tough luck, because you're going to wait. So
yeah, it's a constant feature of life on the road here in Holmes County.
Yeah. And then obviously, too, we have a bit more ice and snow.
Yeah, this is your first winter driving in the north.
Yeah.
How's that been? It's been a pretty light winter.
Yeah, it hasn't been anything crazy yet, thankfully. But I remember a couple weeks ago, we had a good amount of snow where, like, I could hardly even get up the driveway. I had to really gas it up the driveway, so that was kind of an experience.
I'm sure you hated that.
Oh, so yeah, definitely sucked having to go 40 up the driveway.
Yeah. What are some of the things that are different about living in a rural community versus living in Franklin? Describe how you experience these two places differently.
Yeah, so at the surface level, obviously just community is a lot tighter. Everyone knows everyone. And it's a bit less to do. You kind of just have to settle with what you have within 20, 30 minutes, which is basically how far you have to travel to do much of anything.
Yeah. That's pretty different than it was in Franklin.
Yeah. Within 20 minutes, you could be in the city.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is definitely a big difference, is just how it's weird because the community is close, but then like to leave the community is you're going to have to go like at least 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But then, just deeper than that, it's been interesting to see how things are, I guess, created in a way. We've talked about how there's not as much art and, beyond just painting or whatever, just how people express themselves is just so different than Tennessee. And especially Franklin, where we were at.
Yeah.
Because that was such an artistic area. But yeah, it feels very like sheltered in, almost like people don't really know that there's a world beyond Holmes County. Mm-hmm. So it's been interesting to talk to my friends, like, and ask them, do you ever plan on traveling outside of this area? Because like a lot of kids just don't even think about it because they were born and raised here. Their parents were born and raised here. Their parents were born and raised here. So it's very almost close mind, like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's one of the big differences is just kind of the feel of how it feels kind of like, well, maybe it's a different kind of bubble because Franklin was kind of its own kind of bubble too, in that, it was affluent and great schools and it was an unusually beautiful place, maybe, and unusually creative and all the amenities, we could walk to a coffee shop and a Chick-fil-A and
a grocery store
and all that. Yeah. So now, like you said, we drive more, but you've gone to a smaller school. So you changed schools, went into 10th grade. How was that experience?
Yeah. Garraway is about, I want to say 500-ish students, give or take. And then Indy it's like 2,200 and growing, I think, 2,100. So, Garraway, 7th through 12th is the same size as the junior grade at Independence. So I feel like that in itself should speak on how different it is. And it was definitely a change. It's not dramatically different where it's like just so hard to like comprehend, but it is definitely like, okay, this is small town school for sure.
What are the differences in the cultures of the schools that you can tell?
Yeah. So like I said, it's just so much less art and creativity and expression. I often say it feels like the schools here were set up just for you to graduate and then get out, because a lot of kids here don't really go to college. A lot of them just end up working straight out of high school. So it's like, okay, here are your core classes. You're going to take those and then you're going to graduate and probably go work at Provia or Kimball's or, whatever. But then at Indy, it was like just, all these different foreign classes and art classes and, anatomy classes and health science classes. And just like, so it's almost like, it feels like Indy was made more to help kids thrive and find, what they are really interested in, compared to Garraway. It just doesn't provide as much, bring as much to the table.
Yeah, I gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
The school district down there was known for having a lot of good
Right.
resources.
Yeah.
That was a great school district.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty solid school district. They just don't have the resources, and there's a different set of emphasis and values.
Right.
This community work very hard.
Yeah, it is. You can't take that away from them either. It's a extremely hard-working community, and like even there's kids in my grade and below that like already have jobs, like on farms and like so like hands-on. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, so they get out there and work, and they're less interested in maybe having like the resources don't get aligned to the educational experience in that way.
Mm-hmm. And then that's not 100% true. I know some kids that are planning on going, OSU, Kent State, whatever it is. But for like the majority of the kids that I know, a lot of them aren't planning on college.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, it's something that I pray about and I spend a lot of time thinking about. Right now, if you were to ask me, I would say I'm not going to college. But who knows, in 4 or 5 months from now, I might have a different answer. But yeah, for the most part, I feel pretty confident in the fact that I'll just work out of high school.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't even finish high school.
Right.
But
it would be like a mixture of you and mom's.
Yeah,
but,
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I know you'll be successful in whatever you do.
Thank you.
Well, if you keep your nose to the grindstone.
Right. Yeah.
So you're a 17-year-old older teenager in 2024 in this unique time and place in our history and our culture and just this moment that we're in.
Right.
Tell me, what are the best parts of being a teenager in your specific moment that you're in? Planted here in rural Ohio, in 2024, in this culture. What are the best parts of your experience of being a teenager?
I think the best part, it's a good question. I think just the limitless opportunities to be great, it's like you can meet like, and this is maybe a bit more excluding Holmes County, but like just kids at my age in 2024, you can meet kids that are making 10 grand a month, right? Just by, doing stuff online or starting their own business. And it hasn't always been like that. So I think the fact that we're just so, still so young and have so much time to just take risks.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you've said before, this is probably going to be the first generation that really doesn't need college.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's still an option for kids that want to do that. But yeah, it's just the world is so wide open for endless opportunities for creation and art and just becoming the best version of yourself, whatever that looks like, pertaining to each person. But yeah.
So what, on the flip side of that, what are the hardest parts, most challenging parts of being a teenager in this time, this moment?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of expectation for kids my age, whether it's from teachers, from parents, from other siblings, from uncles, from aunts, from just society, because society definitely has standards, and they're gonna try to make you meet those standards, and if you don't, like, it can definitely be hard to, make something of yourself. So I think, having high expectations, and then also just, I'm not going to get too into it, but like just with, politics and just the LGBTQ community and, all this different stuff. It's just so much like to, I guess, process. And there's just a lot of stress, I think, on this generation, just from whatever it may be.
How much of that stress do you think, you mentioned the word expectations, and is there a sense that the world is kind of a confusing place, and there's some things that seem confusing, but we don't really feel free to talk about them?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like if you do try to talk about certain stuff, you'll be just shut down immediately. Yeah, for sure.
So I think one of the things that I'm hopeful for you in your generation is that you guys figure out a way to talk about everything,
Right.
Because it just, when you don't, when there's certain things that you just can't talk freely about, it's hard to map your way through it.
Right.
Yeah. So we were talking about the experience of being a teenager, 17-year-old in this time and in this moment that we're in, about the cultural pressures and expectations and burdens. We had talked about the best parts of being a teen and then some of the more challenging aspects of it.
Right.
What are some of the other challenging parts of being a teen in this moment? What are some of the influences or problems or issues that you wrestle with?
Yeah, I believe I talked a bit about already just the expectations that we feel that we need to reach, and just society's standards for young teens to, be just, to fit in. And besides that, I think this generation is, one of the first to grow up with a computer in your pocket, essentially, which I think has had a drastic effect on just this generation and kids my age. Everything feels done virtually. People are probably going to be listening to this or watching this behind an iPhone or computer screen. Mm-hmm. So, obviously that it does have some positive benefits, but there's definitely also just a lot of negative things that can come out of it if you don't use it right. Just within the tap of a button, you can just have whatever you want in front of you. And
yeah, what are some of the ways that impacts your peers and you?
It definitely makes kids not live in the present. And I talked about that too as a goal of mine, is spending less time in front of my screen and spending more time in the present, just one-on-one with people. So I think that's been one of the biggest effects, is how normal it's become to just be on your phone in front of people, whether it's hanging out or at dinner or with your family. It's just, it almost doesn't feel like real anymore. It feels like interactions are just so much less authentic now. And, I'm a victim to that as well. I have definitely spent too much time on my phone when I should just be present. But yeah, that's a big one, is just, because it's a dopamine hit. And so it's hard to just, quit or spend less time, because your brain thinks that you're accomplishing things when you're just scrolling on your phone, and it's just slowly rotting you away. And not only that, but taking less of your precious time away from the people around you that care for you the most. So.
Yeah. One of the things we have done in our home is we've tried to create I'd say we're pretty relaxed about phone use in some ways, but then in other ways we have some pretty strict boundaries. We don't have any phones at the table, and so it's always shocking when we're eating with somebody and they have a phone at the table. We're like,
yeah,
would you join us?
Right. Or even like on the opposite end, I've had friends comment, be like, is this like how dinner is every night, where you're just like, you spend an hour eating, no phones, no distractions with your family, almost like you're out at a restaurant.
Yeah, sit down for dinner and sit together for an hour or two and
every
catch
day.
Up on the day. Yeah, we do that as often as we can, usually, I don't know, 5 times a week at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's something that your mom works really hard at, and she makes that special, and it's been kind of a core part of our family's experience. Yeah. But yeah, the phones they're such a powerful tool, and I've regretted giving you guys phones as early as we did. I would not do it that soon.
Right.
But you do have to learn how to work with it, because it's a feature of life, kind of. You could not have a smartphone, but most people won't make that trade-off. Right. I've thought about it, go back to a flip phone, but when it comes down to having podcasts with you, having music with you, having a GPS with you, having a camera with you, it's really hard to make that trade-off.
Yeah.
But all right. So we talked about some of the challenging parts of being a teen, some of the best parts.
Right.
What would you say? So you said that there was some resistance that you feel sometimes in the culture about certain topics or whatever, and this doesn't have to be about any of those topics, but what would you really say to your friends if you were unafraid to say anything that you wanted to?
I would say that you don't need to talk down on others for attention, and you don't need to belittle anyone, and you don't need to do or have any of that. And I know that's not necessarily a topic, but it is a pattern that I've recognized. And, Mom talks a lot about people here, just more so in this community. Obviously, it's something that the whole world struggles with, but more so in this community, whether people realize it or not, there is a lot of talking down on others, whether it's to make yourself feel good or to give attention to yourself. And yeah, I think that needs to go now.
The Japanese have an ancient proverb that basically means something like the nail that sticks up will get hammered down.
Yeah.
So if you stand out, you're going to get beat down.
Right.
And there's some cultures for whom that's more the case. And it does feel like this culture is more that way than what we lived in Franklin. So being somebody who's maybe more creative or artsy or cares about things like fashion or streetwear or any number of things that kind of marks you as being a little bit outside the norm.
Right.
And one of the things I've noticed too is that in a small community like this, that people talk about other people in part. You mentioned that it might be to make them feel better about themselves, but there's also an element to it that I see where it's kind of to control other people or to keep them, keep them in line. So the threat of being talked about is enough to keep people from, actualizing and being who they're called to be.
Absolutely.
And so, they stay small. They don't want to be the nail that sticks up. They don't want to speak out. They don't want to step outside that box. And so, there's a kind of deadening that happens, and it needs some fresh wind and fresh fire.
And even if it's not talking bad or down upon a certain someone or something, it's interesting just to even see how like almost amused people are, like how many questions, like why this, why do you wear that, why do you do that, why do you listen to that, why, like it feels like they need an answer to everything. And that might go back to the whole control part that you were talking about. So
does that, when you face that, when you get some of those questions, how do you handle that?
I try to just, respond, in love. It's not going to help to be like, oh, well, why do you care? But, just be honest. Yeah, I wear this because I like it. I listen to this because I like it. And I like how it makes me feel. And, I think not answering in an aggressive, hateful manner is definitely a good step. And just being, being yourself, being genuine. Yeah, this is what I grew up listening to. This is what I grew up wearing. This is what makes me feel good. So, yeah.
What are some things specifically that you like that the people around you might find different enough to comment on?
Oh man, there's definitely there's certain pieces in my wardrobe that have gotten some comments on, whether it's, carpenter pants that I wear or the shoes I wear with them or the way I put stuff together and present myself has definitely gotten some questions.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
What are some of the things in your life that make it rich and give it meaning?
I think being able to wake up every day and be given a new opportunity to make someone else's day better and brighten up someone else's day. It's fun to almost even look at it as a challenge, like, okay, like how many people can I get to smile today? Or how many people can I get to laugh? Or, just the simple things. I think it brings a lot of, and it makes you feel better about yourself too, and not in a greedy way. It's like, I feel if you can make the people around you feel better, you're going to get the same back. And so that's definitely rich, makes me feel rich in non-material ways.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of the verse where it says that we should store up our treasures in heaven, where it doesn't rust and it's not stolen. It doesn't get corrupted.
And we were talking about that last Sunday too in church.
Yeah. So that positive state change that you can bring by being a light,
right,
and bringing that presence into every encounter that you have, there's a certain reward that's in you that gets rewarded when you live that out.
It's that, true dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Instead of getting dopamine from scrolling on your phone, go tell someone that you like what they're wearing or you think they have nice eyes.
Go make somebody smile.
Right. Then you'll get a real dopamine hit. You're like, yeah, this feels good. And I actually achieved something.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can feel good about it.
Right.
That's awesome. Well, that kind of leads in and maybe makes my next question kind of repetitive, but I was going to ask, what's the gift that you bring to the world?
Yeah, I think I try my best to make other people around me, make the people around me happy and comfortable. And, obviously I don't always succeed at that, because there's days that I wake up on the wrong side of the pillow and I just want to keep to myself and, stay in my headphones all day. But I feel like for the most part, it's been true that my, gift per se is, making people happy to a certain extent.
Bringing joy to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that in you for sure. That is a gift that you bring to the world. You're a bright light. Describe the gap between who you are and who you want to be.
The gap between who I am and who I want to be. That's a great question, because it's something that I wrestle with a lot right now. Oh boy, I think the fear of what others are going to think and how I might think about myself. I think as someone who, does like to go out and make other people happy and proud or whatever it is, there's a big fear of failure and messing up, because then if I'm not careful, I'll get in my own head and start talking to myself in ways that aren't true. So I think that is one of the biggest things I'm going to have to just be okay with, is not being okay and not being comfortable and not getting it right, right away.
You've always been really sensitive to disappointing people.
Right.
Do you feel like if you would be who you want to be over the next period of time, if the best came out of you over the next, say, 7 years, what do you feel that would disappoint someone?
Absolutely. I mean, at least something along the way would. Yeah. I'm going to mess up for sure.
Sure. Yeah. But is there anything that you feel a lack of coherence about? Like do you feel you have the support around you for you to develop optimally?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think just you and mom alone is enough support. Yeah. And then on top of that, I have, Ben and Portia and, even Bridget. She's younger, but.
And they call you on your crap.
Oh, absolutely. And you almost more than anyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of cool to see how you as siblings have even, like, there's an emergent ethic that kind of governs the way that you interact with the world and with each other, and you kind of have a standard that you expect each of us to live up to. And right. It's enforced in love. Like, it's not a harsh thing, but it's there is a standard, back to that idea.
And us kids will keep you in mind. I mean, I know there's been a couple times that Ben's came to you and been like,
you guys have called me out.
Yeah, you're not living up to the standard of the house.
Yeah, that's right. That's one of the things that I love, and it's such a privilege to be a part of a family like this, where there is this thing outside of, like, it's all of us, but then there's this thing that's outside of us, and that maybe that's God as this transcendent ethic that binds us and unites us and sets the pattern for our interaction and sets the pattern for what we consider the best, the holiest, the deepest, the most desirable, the most beautiful, all
Absolutely.
That. And it does, it kind of, it beckons to all of us. And I do appreciate how we are able to encourage each other in that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a very healthy part of the house.
Describe how you first experienced God and made a decision to follow and trust in God. What's your testimony or your story?
Yeah, so I remember it was the day before we moved, I got baptized, if I'm correct. That was the day before, right?
Yeah, that would have been back the move to Tennessee.
Yeah, sorry. For clarification, it was the move from Pennsylvania to Tennessee.
Yeah, you got baptized just before that.
Yeah, so at about 9, I was baptized. But I still think that I was not quite emotionally and like religiously mature enough to understand that. I mean, you know, obviously I did a little bit, but
you were earnest in your faith as it could be at 9.
Right, absolutely. And to a certain extent, like I checked the boxes, but I definitely want to get baptized again now that I'm, you know, getting older and more mature in those ways. I think a lot of the religious maturing happened within the past 2 to 3 years, kind of the back end of, you know, the kind of darker part of my life, if you will, like elementary, middle school. I feel like it's been something I've been more consciously working on since about 9th grade, give or take. It's definitely been like I've been the most attentive to my religious maturity within probably the past 6 months, I'd say. Really, especially since the move, a lot.
So that maybe some of those challenges kind of drew you into that.
Yeah, because it's been something like I've had to work through a lot of that stuff.
You know, I find it interesting because you mentioned this kind of darker season when you were in junior high, and then coming out of that, you mentioned that there was a deepening of your faith, and that it became a more profound reality for you. So when you face that darkness, and then, I mean, you could have gone one of two ways, but you chose the path of faith. Why do you think you did, and what? And then again, when you moved up here, you know, you faced some challenges, and it drove you deeper into your faith. And you have a more profound relationship with God now than you did before. So, but that again was, you could have gone the other way. You know, what do you think? What do you make of the fact that that's been your story?
I think a big part of it is the support that I have around me, and, you know, my siblings, and then you and Mom as well, because it's almost hard to not grow in that part of my life when I'm just surrounded by it, you know, every time I come home in some way or another. It would almost be foolish of me to not at least dig deeper into, you know, what it means to have a relationship with Christ. And obviously I've not been perfect even within, you know, the move. But I do feel like I have done a better job at just keeping myself accountable and you know, doing that gritty, like getting down to like like what does this really look like, and what should I start really considering, and what should I be like, okay, that's maybe just something that society says about religion or Christ. And so
kind of owning your faith and making it deeper.
Really taking the time to find out what that looks like and what that means to me. And
so describe your walk with God, and describe the nature of your relationship with God
right now. So one thing I've been more conscious of is prayer, and spending time with him in that way, making sure I do that relatively consistently. And I always try to make sure that I don't only ask from him, but also thank him for everything that he's done in my life and everything that he gives me. I think there's been a lot bigger of a focus on intentionality with God, because I always would have said that I'm a Christian and that I'm religious in that way, but up until for maybe the past year or so, I have not really been living that out much. I mean, in certain areas, but I definitely would not have said that I was intentional in that and actually living out, you know, what I'm speaking about and what I say to be true. about myself. So yeah, definitely being more intentional about that kind of stuff. And yeah.
When you consider God as the source and as ultimate reality, and from which all things flow,
Right.
the highest thing at the core of everything, do you feel when you think about that, do you feel more delighted in or separate from?
I would say, well, definitely more delighted in than in the past. There are some times where I feel a bit more separate, but I would say overall, yeah, I feel closer to God than I have in a while.
That thing that makes you feel separate, do you know what to call that?
No, I don't think I could. I mean,
I'm going to describe it as your ego.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So our ego is what makes us feel separate from God.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's why Christ said that we need to die to ourselves in order to follow God. It's that ego that says, hey, this is me, and I have my needs and wants and desires and all of that. And it's what creates that feeling of separation, that perception of separation.
Right.
And so you described it well. I think that we all have a part of us that feels delighted in and in union with God, with Source. And then there's a part of us that feels separate from.
Yeah.
And the spiritual journey is to die to that part that makes us feel separate from and to rediscover our union with Him.
Right.
And so you described that well, is that you do feel that union with Him and that delight in Him. And there's times, that, fear, shame, guilt, all these things are constructs of the ego in some sense, and that they make us feel separate from God. It blocks and somebody was asking me about, we were talking about sin, and I sin is missing the mark, which that presupposes that there is a mark, that there's something that we're aiming at. And we've already talked about that it's God that, unites all that. But I kind of forgot what I was going to say I was going to tie that back together about what we were talking about, feeling separate from. But anyway, I'll just wrap that up by saying that I think in our family, one of the things that we see is that when we go all in on the story of Christ, and we seek to make that the pattern for our life, that there's a healing that happens, and there's a way that we can deal with the egos that are around here, and recognizing that they have some value that they bring. That's also a true part of you. I mean, it's not the true part of you. Jesus called it our false, or he referred to as something that needs to die eventually as we discover our union with God. But it's something that's necessary to help you grow up into adulthood and establish, who you are and what, in the world. And so it's cool to see you wrestle with that and feel that tension, but also see your identity in God, who you are.
Absolutely.
So if your dreams came true, describe an ideal Saturday 10 years from now.
10 years from now, I would be almost 30. Would be about 27.
So you get up Saturday morning.
Yeah, Saturday morning, I would want to spend the morning with the family.
What's the first thing you do?
I would get up, I would brush my teeth, I would go make a pot of coffee, and either I would want to have woken up early enough that I can enjoy my first cup out on, a balcony or out in fresh air. Maybe have a cigarette in hand. I'll be of legal age by then, so great way to get the day started. So I've heard
Saturday morning.
Yeah. So just watch the sunrise, get a cup of coffee in my body. And then as the family starts to, wake up, I would love to just take it slow, no rush, no need to get anything done.
So you're married at this point?
Married with kids.
Married with kids.
Yeah,
I like it. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, have a family. It would probably be younger kids.
Yeah, so they probably have been up since the crack of dawn.
Yeah. I'll probably have some eye bags. It might be kind of rough at night, but yeah, and then once the family's up and everyone's awake, get some breakfast going, whether that's... I would love to carry on the tradition that our family has of having an extravagant breakfast on Saturday mornings when we can, whether that's homemade biscuits and gravy or, a big platter of food.
Yeah.
So doing that, and then just...
Some music playing.
A little bit of music in the background, yeah. And just, taking it very slowly and just recognize the beauty that has been given to me. And yeah.
Cool. And then what? So you got breakfast and then...
Yeah, I think I would want to do something with the kids, whether that's going fishing or taking them to, a park, depending on the weather. If we're saying this is like a Saturday in, the summer, maybe go to a park, throw a frisbee, maybe go like creek rambling. That's always a good memory I had with our family, going up the Harpeth River just in our chacos and shorts or whatever. And,
absolutely.
Just taking the family to do something like that, get active, get the body moving, get the sunlight. And then, I would, after that...
Saturday night,
I want to start some sort of tradition over the weekend, whether that's like family game night, maybe order pizza in and, get a Monopoly going or, whatever that looks like, or watching a movie, just having the family involved while the kids are young, because I know that there's a certain age that kids kind of want to go do their own things, especially on the weekends. So just cherishing that moment of having a young family and making sure I take time to do things right and intentional and make sure the kids feel loved and have some strong base memories to grow up with.
Oh, that's awesome. Tell me about some of those memories for you. When you think about some peak memories, what comes to mind? Yeah,
so ironically, a lot of the stuff that I kind of mentioned that I'd want my Saturday to look like, Saturday mornings, I remember a lot of the time I'd wake up and hear, music coming from upstairs, and, I already smell the food, and then I'd come up and we'd spend a good 2 hours just around the table, and and then just making sure that time is spent with family, whether that was taking a weekend trip to Kentucky to go camp, or going creek rambling, or going downtown, or going thrifting, but doing it as a family.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, when you think about the opportunity to, be on the podcast and share what you're thinking and what's on your heart and all of that, what have you left unsaid? What do you want to say to the listeners?
To the people? Oh, man. I think if I had to leave some final notes on the table, or to just recap in general, life is too short to live out of hatred or, out of resentment. And if you do live with resentment, go get it figured out. Go talk to the person that you're resentful towards and, get that straightened out, because life is too short to be on your deathbed and realize that you weren't all that you could have been, and that you spent your whole life mad at someone for something that felt valid at the time, but now is just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I think living out of love and making sure that love is rooted through God is important. I would say I'm a big advocate for loving the people around you and making the world a better place through that, because I might not be able to go and find the cure for cancer or donate millions of dollars towards some charity fund. I mean, I would love to if that's what God has for me, but it's a lot easier just to wake up in the morning and decide you're going to have a smile on your face and be the reason that somebody else does.
Yeah. Well, you live that out beautifully.
Thank you. I try my best.
You're a beautiful man, and I'm proud to call you my son.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see where you go in life. I think you've got a bright future. I love how present you are with the people that you're with and how intentional you are about serving them and having fun with them and making them enjoy themselves. You're a gift.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, thanks for joining us today for this episode 11, a conversation with my son, William, who is 17 at this recording and is a junior at Garraway High School. He's got a bright future, and he's got a big social circle, a lot of friends, and he's been a true joy to have in the family. So, love you, son.
Love you too.